It's a companion animal, Elena explained to the still bristling Galactic security chief, whose name was unpronounceable in human vocal ranges. She privately nicknamed him Clicks for the staccato mandible sounds punctuating his speech. He's genetically modified to be gentle. This was, technically, a simplification bordering on falsehood. Max's golden retriever lineage resulted from selective breeding, not gene splicing, but Elena suspected explaining dog domestication would only reinforce the alien's horror. Selective predator control is prohibited under Concordat Biological Weapons Statute 5.28. Clicks replied, the translation unit struggling with his agitated cadence. The creature must be quarantined for assessment. Max chose that moment to flop onto his back, paws splayed ridiculously, tongue lolling out in the picture of canine contentment. The Grand Arbiter of the Concordat, a willowy being with skin like polished obsidian, leaned forward from her elevated dais. Her species, the Shaleen, were among the eldest in the Concordat, and she had initially supported humanity's inclusion. Now uncertainty clouded her luminous eyes. Ambassador Chen, she intoned, her voice like chimes in a gentle breeze. Help us understand. Your species deliberately altered apex predators to serve you, yet you claim this is neither slavery nor weaponization. Elena knelt beside Max, who immediately rolled over, pressing his head against her palm. Respectfully, Arbiter, you misunderstand our relationship. Dogs chose us as much as we chose them. Early wolves found benefit in human campsites, food scraps, warmth. Humans discovered wolves could alert us to danger, help with hunting. Over generations, both species evolved together. The Valaxian ambassador hissed dismissively, scales still flared in threat display. Predators do not choose cooperation. They calculate advantage. Elena scratched behind Max's ears, provoking the happy rear leg thump against the polished floor. Several delegates flinched at the motion. Precisely, Ambassador. Both species calculated advantage and found it in cooperation rather than competition. That's not exploitation. It's the most successful interspecies alliance in Earth's history. Murmurs of untranslatable debate rippled through the chamber. Elena recognized she was losing them. In desperation, she tried a different approach. Has anyone here actually touched a dog? Silence fell like a stone. Would anyone like to? The silence intensified. Elena could have sworn she heard someone's exoskeleton creaking in distress at the very suggestion. Then, unexpectedly, the Grand Arbiter's aide, a younger Shaleen with curiosity outweighing caution, descended from the dais. I would, she said simply. Security immediately moved to intercept, but the Arbiter raised a six-fingered hand, halting them. Proceed with caution, Nalith. The aide approached slowly, bioluminescent patterns flickering nervously across her skin. Elena gently took her slender hand, palm like cool silk, and guided it to Max's head. Like this, Elena demonstrated. He enjoys being touched here. Nalith's fingers trembled as they connected with Max's golden fur. Max, sensing the aide's anxiety with that uncanny canine intuition, remained perfectly still, only his eyes shifting upward to watch the alien. After a moment, the Shaleen relaxed minutely. It's soft, she said, wonder tinging her musical voice. And warm. He's projecting contentment, offered a Medusan observer, their neural tendrils waving in analysis. Simple emotions, but remarkably clear. Max chose that precise moment to lick Nalith's hand. The aide jerked back in surprise, but crucially, did not flee in terror. He likes you, Elena explained, suppressing a smile at the Shaleen's confusion. This behavior, the Arbiter mused, watching her aide examine her dampened hand with scientific curiosity rather than disgust, it is not aggression. It's affection, Elena said. On Earth, we call it friendship. The Grand Arbiter's expression shifted subtly, the Shaleen equivalent of profound contemplation. Perhaps, she said finally, we have much to learn about Earth's evolutionary paths. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, But it was a beginning. Elena stared at the monitoring devices installed throughout her quarters. They hadn't even tried to hide them. Scanner units protruding from walls like technological barnacles, atmosphere samplers humming near air vents, and biometric sensors blinking at her from every corner. The message was clear. You and your beast are under surveillance. "Good morning, Ambassador," chirped the Concordat-issued AI from a ceiling speaker. "Your vital signs indicate mild stress. Would you prefer a sedative dispensation or guided meditation?" "I'd prefer privacy," Elena muttered, tossing her diplomatic credential chip onto the countertop. She discovered last week that the chip tracked her movements throughout the station. Now she only carried it when protocol demanded. Max patted over from his bed and rested his chin on her knee, sensing her frustration. Elena's hand automatically found the soft spot behind his ears. Her terminal chimed. Another message from Earth. Ambassador Liu, her superior, appeared on screen, his expression tight with concern. "Chen, you've become something of a celebrity back home. News feeds can't get enough of the alien fear of Dog's angle." He sighed. "But the situation isn't improving fast enough. The Concordat Security Council is pushing for additional restrictions on all Earth animals. They're calling for genetic sequences, behavioral profiles, essentially treating every domestic species as a potential bioweapon." Elena's jaw tightened. "Sir, that's invasive, insulting." "Of course it is, but we need this alliance." Liu's eyes flickered to Max, visible in the corner of the transmission. "How's our unofficial ambassador doing?" "Making more diplomatic progress than I am," Elena admitted. "The cleaning staff refused to enter my quarters for the first week. Now they bring him treats, something that apparently resembles bacon in their culture." Liu almost smiled. Small victories. After the transmission ended, Elena pulled up the day's schedule. A mandatory medical examination for Max, followed by a cultural exchange presentation she'd been asked to deliver on human relationships with non-sentient species. The Concordat was particularly interested in horses, apparently finding the concept of sitting atop another living creature even more alarming than canine companionship. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. Not the harsh metallic rap of station security, but something more hesitant. "Enter," Elena called, positioning herself slightly in front of Max, a habit she'd developed since arriving. The door slid open to reveal a pelerin, an amphibious species with iridescent skin and large, expressive eyes. She recognized him as a junior cultural attaché named Silith. "Ambassador Chen," he said, voice bubbling through his speech modulator. "I apologize for the unscheduled intrusion." "What can I do for you, Silith?" The pelerin's gill flaps pulsed with obvious nervousness. "I wish to inquire about your companion animal. In private." Elena raised an eyebrow. "The monitoring devices make privacy challenging. They've been temporarily deactivated in this section," Silith said quietly. "Maintenance cycle. We have approximately 7 minutes." That got her attention. "What's this about?" Silith glanced nervously at Max. "Is it true what they say? That these creatures can detect illness before medical scanners? That they locate survivors in collapsed structures? That they guide humans with sensory impairments?" Elena studied the alien's face, reading genuine curiosity rather than fear. "Yes. Dogs have abilities we've cultivated over thousands of years of partnership." Silith's skin rippled with color, excitement, possibly. "Ambassador, I believe the Concordat is making a grave error in their assessment of your species. The ability to form cooperative bonds with other life forms isn't primitive or dangerous. It's exactly what the Galactic Charter claims to value." "You're risking a lot by telling me this," Elena observed. "There are others who share my view," Silith replied, his colors shifting to more subdued tones. "A growing faction within the Concordat who see humanity's relationship with animals as fascinating rather than threatening." Before Elena could respond, Silith's communication device pulsed. "The monitoring systems will reactivate shortly. I must go." At the door, He paused. "Ambassador, whatever you do, do not allow them to separate you from your companion." That is precisely what certain factions are hoping for. The door slid shut, leaving Yelena staring at the space where Silith had stood, Max pressing reassuringly against her leg as the monitoring lights blinked back to life around them. Blood trickled from a gash on Yelena's forehead as she crawled through the maintenance shaft, the acrid smell of smoke filling her lungs. Max led the way, his golden fur now gray with dust, occasionally looking back to ensure the aliens followed. Behind her, the Valaxian ambassador hissed in pain. His name was Silith, though Yelena had only learned this during their desperate escape. His left arm hung uselessly at his side, scales charred from an explosion. "How much further, human?" demanded Corax, a spindly Thejan whose exoskeleton clicked with each movement. "The atmospheric composition is approaching toxic levels for my species." "Ask the beast," Silith muttered, then corrected himself when Yelena shot him a look. "The dog." As if understanding, Max stopped at a junction and sniffed intensely, then turned left with confidence. Yelena had stopped questioning his instincts. Somehow he tracked shifting air currents through the labyrinthine maintenance system, leading them away from sections where life support had failed entirely. "There's something wrong about these tunnels," observed Nema, a gelatinous Phosian who flowed along the shaft with disturbing ease. "They don't match any station schematics I've studied." "Concordat stations have redundant systems," Yelena explained between ragged breaths. "Some aren't documented for security reasons." "How does your Max know where to go?" asked Rita, a diminutive Elleran whose species communicated partially through color shifts in their skin. Currently, Rita was flickering between stress purple and fear green. "He's following fresher air currents and human scent trails. Maintenance crews leave olfactory markers he can detect," Yelena explained. "On Earth, search and rescue dogs can find people trapped under rubble after earthquakes or avalanches." The shaft suddenly widened into a junction hub with multiple pathways. Max hesitated for the first time, circling anxiously. "What's wrong with him?" Silith asked, his tone less hostile than before. Yelena frowned. "He's confused. Too many options, or maybe." She sniffed the air herself. "Something's masking the sense." A distant rumble shook the station. The attack was expanding to new sections. "We need to decide quickly," Corax chittered nervously. "My exoskeleton is registering increasing pressure differentials. Another bulkhead may have breached." Max suddenly froze, hackles raising along his spine. Yelena recognized the posture instantly. "Someone's coming," she whispered. The aliens tensed, those with weapons readying them. Silith fumbled for his sonic disruptor, the same one he'd once aimed at Max. A panel slid open, and a bloodied station engineer collapsed into the junction. The being was Mrethi, an insectoid species with multifaceted eyes and translucent kitten. One leg was severed at the joint. Max's demeanor changed instantly. The warning posture disappeared, replaced by focused attention. Before Yelena could stop him, he approached the injured engineer, who recoiled in terror. "No, keep it away." The Mrethi clicked frantically. "He won't hurt you," Yelena said firmly. "He's trying to help." Max gently took the engineer's remaining uniform sleeve in his mouth and looked back at Yelena, then tugged slightly. "He wants us to follow," Yelena realized. The engineer must have come from a safe section. "Or the beast wants to drag away its prey," Silith said, but without conviction. The Mrethi engineer's eyes darted between the dog and the aliens. "Is it trained for rescue?" Yelena nodded. "Yes. Can you tell us where you came from? Is there a safe path?" Section 42B still has emergency power and atmospheric regulation, the engineer managed, but the connecting corridors are blocked with debris. Max tugged again, more insistently. Silith stared at the dog, then at the engineer who resembled nothing so much as prey to an earth canine. "Your beast could easily kill this one, yet it attempts to save it." Something shifted in the Valaxian's expression. Perhaps I have been hasty in my assessment. Trust Max, Alina said simply. He's never let me down. The Valaxian nodded slowly, then extended his good arm to help the injured Rethi. Lead on, Earth Dog. It seems today we follow your pack. Alina wiped caustic sweat from her eyes as Tartarus's triple suns beat down mercilessly. The atmospheric filtration mask provided minimal protection against the planet's toxic air, each breath burning slightly despite the technology. Max panted beside her, his specialized canine mask wheezing with each inhalation. Your beast appears to be malfunctioning, observed Vexar, his massive reptilian form surprisingly agile as he navigated the acid flats. His scales gleamed with artificial enhancements, metallic implants catching the harsh sunlight. He's not malfunctioning, Alina corrected. Dogs cool themselves by panting. His body is operating normally. Vexar's vertical pupils narrowed. Inefficient design. The Draghorn eliminated such weaknesses from our evolutionary line millennia ago. Alina bit back a retort. The Draghorn spoke of evolution as if it were engineering, something to be corrected rather than adapted to. Their biotechnology had removed what they considered flaws from their species, replacing natural selection with deliberate design. Max suddenly stiffened, nose working intensely despite the mask. He turned toward a ridge of crystalline formations, ears forward. He's detected something, Alina said, instantly alert. Vexar unsheathed his monomolecular blade. Prey or hunters? Neither. Hold position. Alina followed Max as he picked his way carefully around toxic puddles, his training preventing him from rushing ahead despite his excitement. Beyond the ridge lay a small depression where the ground had collapsed, revealing an underground spring. Unlike the caustic liquids that covered much of the surface, this water glimmered with surprising clarity. Fresh water, Alina breathed in disbelief. Vexar approached cautiously, his scanner extending from a forearm implant. Minimal contamination, nearly potable with basic filtration. He looked at Max with newfound interest. Your beast detected this from over 200 meters through toxic wind currents. His sense of smell is approximately 10,000 times more sensitive than mine, Alina explained, already setting up her portable purifier. He can detect specific molecules in parts per trillion. Such abilities would be valuable in Draghorn scout units, Vexar mused. Why has your species not fully integrated these capabilities? Alina filled her canteen, letting Max drink from a collapsible bowl. We don't integrate. We cooperate. Dogs maintain their own genetic lineage, and we maintain ours. The partnership works because each species remains true to itself. The conversation halted as their emergency beacons chimed simultaneously, the checkpoint signal. Somewhere in the valley beyond, other competitors were facing Tartarus challenges. The competition's rules required all participants to reach specific coordinates by nightfall or face elimination. We should move, Vexar said, refilling his own water systems. The next terrain zone contains predator species. Alina nodded, but as she packed her equipment, she noticed Max's attention had shifted. He stood rigid, staring into the distance where heat distorted the horizon. What is it, boy? Vexar consulted his scanner. Nothing registers on thermal or movement sensors. Max whined softly, a sound Alina recognized from Earth search operations. Someone's in trouble, she said with certainty. Vexar's expression hardened. The checkpoint is in the opposite direction. Assisting competitors violates the spirit of the assessment challenge. I'm not leaving someone to die for a competition, Alina stated firmly. She checked her compass. The checkpoint coordinates are southwest. We can make it there after we investigate. This is why the Draghorn questioned humanity's readiness for the Concordat, Vexar hissed. You allow emotional responses to override tactical advantage. Alina was already following Max. On Earth, we call it compassion. It's why we survived as a species. She looked back at the towering reptilian. You're welcome to continue alone. Vexar stood motionless, internal conflict evident in his rigid posture. Finally, with a sound like grinding stone, he followed. "Your weakness intrigues me," he admitted reluctantly. "I will observe how it leads to your inevitable failure." Alina suppressed a smile. For a Dragorn, it was practically a declaration of friendship. The crystalline cave shimmered with bioluminescent fungi, casting eerie blue light across the huddled forms of the competitors. Outside, Tartarus's atmosphere had become a swirling maelstrom of caustic particles, forcing even the most resilient species to seek shelter. Alina finished securing Vexar's wound with the last of her medical sealant. The Dragorn's scales had been partially dissolved by a predatory vine that had wrapped around his leg when he'd pushed the Medusan competitor out of its path. The selfless act had shocked everyone, most of all Vexar himself. "Your technique is surprisingly effective," Vexar acknowledged, testing the injured limb. "Though primitive." "Primitive works when advanced tech fails," Alina replied, nodding toward his malfunctioning exo-armor. The planet's magnetic fields had disrupted most of their technology, leaving them reliant on basic survival skills. Across the cave, the Medusan, a being named Thrix whose body resembled a translucent jellyfish, supported by a mechanical exoskeleton, approached cautiously. Max lay between the alien and Alina, not threatening but attentive. "War Commander," Thrix addressed Vexar, neural tendrils pulsing with obvious discomfort. "My species has historically been prey to Dragorn hunting parties, yet you risked injury to protect me. I must understand why." Vexar's reptilian features remained stoic, but Alina had learned to read the subtle shifts in his posture. He was embarrassed. "The human's beast protected me yesterday when the acid swarm attacked," he finally stated. "I found myself replicating its behavior, a tactical error." "Not an error," Alina corrected gently. "An evolution." The cave fell silent except for the howling storm outside. In the far corner, the Taurian competitor, an enormous bull-like being, shifted uncomfortably while the avian shrill preened damaged feathers. Thrix's tendrils waved in a pattern Alina had come to recognize as thoughtfulness. "I have observed the human-canine interactions with growing fascination. There is no dominance hierarchy as we understand it." The beast, the Medusan, paused, correcting itself. The *dog* anticipates needs before they are expressed. "Pack instinct," Alina explained. "Dogs understand subtle body language and emotional states. Max knows when I'm anxious or in pain before I say anything. Yet you do not control it telepathically?" asked the shrill, who had been silently listening. "Our scientists detected synchronized brainwave patterns." "Not telepathy. Empathy," Alina clarified. 15,000 years of co-evolution. We've shaped each other." "Heresy," muttered the Taurian. "Species do not advance through cooperation. The strong consume or subjugate the weak. This is universal law." Max, who had been resting at Alina's feet, suddenly rose and padded across the cave to where Vexar sat. The Dragorn tensed, reptilian instincts still wary despite their alliance. To everyone's surprise, Max simply settled beside him, positioning his body to share warmth with the injured alien. "What is it doing?" Vexar asked, bewildered. "Your body temperature is dropping. He's helping regulate it," Alina explained. "He does the same for humans with hypothermia." "But I threatened to skin it when we first met," Vexar said, confusion evident in his normally confident voice. Alina smiled. "He doesn't hold grudges. Another trait dogs evolved that benefited both our species." Thrix moved closer, neural tendrils extending with cautious curiosity. "On my world, we have a forbidden philosophical concept. *orthosymbiosis*. The theory that species can advance more rapidly through mutually beneficial relationships than through competition. It contradicts dominant evolutionary models so completely that researching it can result in academic execution. On Earth, Alina said softly, "We call it friendship." The storm intensified outside, but within the cave, Something fundamental was shifting. As Max maintained his vigilant position beside the wounded Dragorn, the competitors, representatives of species with histories of conflict stretching back millennia, began to consider a heretical possibility. Perhaps the most dangerous predator in the known galaxy had discovered an evolutionary advantage their own species had overlooked. Elena huddled beside a thermal vent as Tartarus entered the burning, its most deadly phase. Sweat evaporated instantly from her skin, leaving salt crystals that irritated like microscopic glass shards. Max lay nearby, his specialized cooling vest struggling against the extreme heat. Vexar approached, his natural reptilian affinity for heat giving him an advantage in these conditions. The Concordat's observation vessel has repositioned, he noted, pointing to a distant silver glint in the burnt-orange sky. They are monitoring us more closely. You mean they're monitoring Max, Elena corrected, offering the dog water from her dwindling supply. Yes. Vexar's admission surprised her. He crouched down, his massive form casting a welcome shadow. There is something I must disclose, human. The assessment challenge was not proposed solely to test your combat capabilities. Elena looked up sharply. What do you mean? Vexar's vertical pupils contracted in the harsh light. Dragorn scientists detected unusual neurological patterns in Earth canines, specifically unprecedented levels of oxytocin and dopamine release when in proximity to humans. Those are bonding hormones, Elena said cautiously. Precisely. The same biochemical patterns found in banned psychic influence technology. Vexar's voice lowered. Some on the Concordat Security Council believe humans have engineered companion animals as biological conduits for emotional manipulation of other species. Elena stared at him in disbelief. That's absurd. Dogs evolved those traits naturally over thousands of generations. Evolution does not produce interspecies loyalty of this magnitude, Vexar countered. Not without intervention. It does when both species benefit, Elena insisted. Wolves that could read human emotions and intentions survived better near human settlements. Humans who formed emotional bonds with wolves gained protection and hunting assistance. Max's ears suddenly perked up. He rose stiffly, attention fixed on the ridge above them. What is it? Vexar asked, hand moving to his weapon. Before Elena could answer, a figure appeared on the ridgeline, tall, willowy, with skin like polished obsidian. A Shaline. The telepath, Vexar breathed. The Shaline observer descended gracefully, heat seemingly having no effect on her crystalline physiology. Elena recognized her as Kaveth, the Concordat's most powerful registered telepath, sent to monitor the challenge. Her presence on the planet's surface rather than on the observation vessel was unprecedented. Ambassador Chen, Kaveth's voice chimed like crystal bells. The Concordat Council has authorized direct assessment of your companion's neurological patterns. Elena stepped protectively in front of Max. He's not a weapon to be analyzed. Not a weapon, Kaveth agreed, surprising both Elena and Vexar. Something far more interesting. May I? She gestured toward Max. Elena hesitated, but something in the Shaline's manner suggested genuine curiosity rather than threat. What exactly do you want to do? A temporary synaptic bridge. I wish to experience his consciousness directly. Vexar stepped forward. Telepathic contact with a predatory species is forbidden under Concordat law. The Council has granted exemption, Kaveth replied serenely. They are most curious about certain anomalies in the canine brain, specifically the regions devoted to emotional processing of human facial expressions and vocalizations. Elena looked down at Max, who seemed remarkably calm in the telepath's presence. It won't hurt him. No harm will come to him, Kaveth promised. I seek understanding, not control. After a moment's deliberation, Elena nodded. Max, stay. The dog obediently sat, watching with alert interest as Kaveth knelt before him. The telepath's obsidian fingers gently touched Max's golden head, and her luminous eyes closed in concentration. The reaction was immediate and shocking. Kaveth gasped, her crystalline skin flaring with pulses of light. Tears, actual liquid tears from a species not known to possess tear ducts, trickled down her face. "What's happening?" Alina demanded, alarmed. "So much loyalty," Kaveth whispered. "So much love. Unconditional. Without reservation." Her voice trembled. "We had no idea." Acrid smoke choked the air as Alina dragged herself forward, each movement sending waves of pain through her injured side. The secessionist ambush had separated them from the others. Only Kaveth remained with her. The telepath's crystalline form cracked and dulled from a sonic blast. "Leave me," Kaveth whispered, her normally melodious voice fragmented. "Their target is me. The data I carry about your companion is too dangerous for them to allow back to the Concordat." Alina ignored her, tightening the makeshift bandage around her own torso. "Max will find us," she said with conviction that belied their desperate situation. "He always does." A distant explosion illuminated the toxic skyline. The observation vessels were gone, destroyed or fled. It was impossible to know. Tartarus had become a battlefield, with secessionist hunters systematically eliminating all witnesses to their operation. "They're jamming all signals," Alina noted, checking her dead communicator. "The Concordat doesn't even know what's happening." Kaveth's luminous eyes dimmed momentarily. "They know. The primary observation vessel escaped. But extraction is impossible while the secessionists control the orbital approaches." Alina collapsed against a boulder, strength fading as blood seeped through her bandages. Her thoughts turned to Max, separated from her during the initial attack. For the first time since arriving on Tartarus, she had ordered him to run, to save himself when the secessionists targeted their position with heavy weapons. "Your thoughts are with your companion," Kaveth observed. "I sent him away," Alina admitted, voice breaking. "I've never done that before. He's trained to stay, to help." "You protected him," the telepath said simply. "And now I can't protect you," Alina replied bitterly. "Or myself." Kaveth's fractured hand gently touched Alina's arm. "When I connected with Max's consciousness, I experienced something my species has theorized but never truly understood. You call it devotion. A concept beyond mere alliance or mutual benefit. It's just how dogs are," Alina said, fighting to stay conscious as blood loss took its toll. "No," Kaveth corrected. "It is what they became through their bond with humanity, and what humanity became through its bond with them. Two predator species choosing to be more together than they could be apart." A noise, subtle but distinct, interrupted them. Alina tensed, reaching for her weapon. Kaveth's crystalline structure vibrated in alarm. Instead of secessionist hunters, Max appeared from the darkness, his golden coat matted with dirt and what looked disturbingly like alien blood. He wasn't alone. Vexar followed, his exo-armor damaged but functional, alongside the Medusan Thrix, and surprisingly, two competitors Alina didn't recognize, a Canthari hive mind and a heavily armed Protean mercenary. "Your beast found us," Vexar explained without preamble, kneeling to examine Alina's wound. "It tracked your blood trail across 3 terrain zones through active secessionist patrols. He led us through sensor gaps in their detection grid," added Thrix, neural tendrils pulsing with what Alina now recognized as excitement. Impossible efficiency. The canine understood concepts it couldn't possibly comprehend. Max pressed against Alina, whining softly as he sensed her pain. "The dog knows you're injured," the Protean observed, voice modulated through a translator. "My species has enhanced olfactory capabilities, but nothing that could track a specific human across this environment. It's remarkable." Vexar administered emergency medical nanites from his armor's dwindling supply. "The secessionists have established a perimeter around the emergency beacons. They're hunting the remaining competitors systematically." "Why did you come back?" Alina asked weakly. "You could have hidden, waited for Concordat reinforcements." The aliens exchanged glances, a moment of silent communication that transcended species differences. "Your Max showed us the way," Thrix answered finally. Vexar's reptilian features shifted in what Elena now recognized as his version of a smile. "We are pack now," he said simply, using the term she had taught him days earlier. "No one gets left behind." The Concordat Grand Assembly Hall fell silent as Max padded across the polished floor, the ceremonial collar of Concordat gleaming against his golden fur. Elena followed several paces behind, her formal diplomatic uniform unable to completely hide the medical exoskeleton supporting her still healing injuries. 3 weeks had passed since their rescue from Tartarus. 3 weeks of debriefings, medical treatments, and heated council deliberations. Now, the moment of decision had arrived. The Grand Arbiter gazed down from her elevated dais, her obsidian features inscrutable. Beside her sat Kaveth, fully recovered, her crystalline form now bearing permanent fracture lines that caught the light like deliberate adornments. "Ambassador Chen," the Arbiter's voice resonated through the chamber. "It is unprecedented for a non-sentient species to address this assembly even symbolically." Elena nodded respectfully. "Unprecedented circumstances call for unprecedented protocols, Arbiter." A ripple of murmurs passed through the gathered representatives. The Valaxian ambassador, once so terrified of Max, now leaned forward with interest rather than fear. The Arbiter gestured to the massive holoprojection dominating the center of the chamber. The data collected during the assessment challenge, combined with telepath Kaveth's direct experience, has forced us to reconsider several fundamental principles of the Concordat. The projection shifted, displaying complex neural mappings of Max's brain alongside a human brain, Helena's. Connection points illuminated, showing complementary activation patterns. For millennia, we classified species relationships in 3 categories: predation, competition, or parasitism. The Arbiter continued. Even symbiosis was understood as merely mutual exploitation. What we witnessed on Tartarus exists outside our taxonomic framework. Vexar stepped forward from the Droigorn delegation, his new position as special liaison to Earth evident from his ceremonial armor. "The human-canine relationship represents evolutionary alliance without dominance," he stated, his deep voice carrying authority earned in combat. "My species believe such bonds impossible, that all relationships between species must be hierarchical by biological necessity." A representative from the scientific consortium rose, their amorphous form pulsing with colors. "Our preliminary analysis suggests that Earth may host multiple examples of such cooperative evolution. We request permission to establish research outposts to study these phenomena." "More importantly," interrupted Esselinth, the Valaxian ambassador who had once threatened Max with a weapon, "is the security implication. If humans can form such bonds with other species, might they not eventually form similar connections with Concordat members?" The question hung in the air, both thrilling and terrifying to the assembly. The Grand Arbiter raised her 6-fingered hand for silence. "Before we continue these deliberations, I believe it appropriate that the subject of our discussion be acknowledged." All eyes turned to Max, who sat patiently at attention, somehow sensing the importance of the moment despite understanding none of the words. Kaveth approached him slowly, carrying a small device. "With your permission, Ambassador Chen, I would like to share with the assembly what I experienced in my connection with Max's consciousness." Elena nodded, placing a reassuring hand on Max's head. The telepath activated the device, and the chamber filled with overwhelming sensations: unconditional loyalty, joy in service, fierce protectiveness without aggression, complete trust, and above all, love without expectation of return. Many representatives physically recoiled from the emotional intensity, while others leaned forward in wonder. When the projection ended, the Arbiter's voice was softer than Elena had ever heard it. "In 3,000 cycles of Concordat history, we have encountered species with greater intelligence, technological achievement, and physical capabilities than humanity. Yet none have developed this." She descended from her dais, an unprecedented act, and approached Max directly. Following Elena's gentle guidance, she extended her hand, palm down. Max placed his paw in it without hesitation. The Cooperative Predator Alliance classification is hereby officially recognized, the Arbiter declared, her voice carrying the weight of law. And with it, humanity's full membership in the Concordat. In the far corner of the chamber, a junior Pellerin aide recorded the historic moment with a subtle addition to the official record. And thus, the most dangerous predators in the known galaxy taught us how to be friends.